Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. You guys know what time it is? Time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And for those of you who like these type of videos, please remember to click like down below. Now, most of you guys know I'm not doing many of these videos anymore. Because quite frankly, I really don't care what other YouTubers are doing for the most part. I'm focusing on me, focusing on my training, my lifting every day, getting as strong as possible, focusing on my clients. I just really and truly don't care what most of these guys are doing. The reason I'm addressing this one is because it is very, very, very similar to what I do. And a number of people pointed it out to me. It wasn't just one person, it was like 5 different posters in my comments. And then some people linked me in private message on Facebook are like, Jason, Alex's bench training looks almost identical to what you're doing and promoting. Do you think he copied you? I don't necessarily know that he did. To be perfectly honest, part of me would say yes, it's possible because we know that he was a long-term follower of my channel before we had a falling out years ago, obviously. He used to comment in my channel every single day under his official current channel that's there now. So he used to watch. We diverged, but lately, as far as this year, a lot of our training philosophies have come around and they overlap tremendously. There's something like probably an 80% overlap between our training philosophies these days. And people have noted that. So, yes, there's a possibility that there's the influence there, but he could also have maybe minorly observed what I'm doing and incorporated already what he was doing and just run with it. Because what is he doing? Well, he's training his bench the way I train all of my big lifts, right? What do I do right now? People who watch know I do heavy singles and I do tens and then rep work for small movements, right? That's what I do. I max out every day and I alternate upper and lower. So I'm either maxing on some sort of press, followed by a bunch of 10 rep sets and supplemental work, or I'm maxing on a squat or a deadlift. Variation on all of these with a bunch of supplemental work. And that's basically what he has come around full circle and is doing. He's saying, look, I'm going to be doing max effort work, rotating the different supplemental lifts, bands, chains, bars. And then he's going to do a bunch of tens, then tricep work, upper back, mid back work, right? And he's mentioned that, where he's going to work more in it with just hypertrophy instead of doing, again, what he had done before with a bunch of maybe 90% singles. No, we go up and build up to a max. You want to be above 90%. And he's cutting out all the intermediary work. And it's something that I've been telling people because people are like, man, your squat and deadlift have just climbed because I'm well up past 500 on my squats now, like mid 500s. And I can do this on multiple types of squats at this point. Deadlifting in the 600 realm on multiple types of deadlifts. And everything's climbing up. Well, I've been doing this same training approach to those things. I hit these different maxes and then I pick all my best supplemental lifts to address my weak links from a hypertrophy and I do like 5 sets of 10. And it's not uncommon for me to do 3 to 5 different exercises for 5 sets of 10 in the same day after a max. And I train like this 7 days a week. And it is working. It's working. But when we look at the bench press, what is it I'm doing this week as far as my stuff goes? Because I've been doing different supplemental stuff. This week it's been what? We max on a bench against chains of some type, right? Or bands. Then I do 5x10 floor press with an axle bar, some Pendlay rows. Then I do 5 sets of 10 on a standing press with the axle bar. Then I do a bunch of triceps delts. Okay, a lot of triceps and delts. That's what my bench training looks like. Well, what's Alex doing? Well, he's addressing his own weak points. I need a little more lower chest. His lower chest and everything is developed. So he's putting a heavier focus on incline and overhead, but that makes sense. And he said his ratios were wrong. And it's true, because look at our ratios. If you look at overhead press versus bench, he can bench more than me right now. I can overhead press more than him and have been able to forever. Okay, so the ratios are different. He has a much lower ratio of overhead press to bench than I do, for example. But he's saying, hey, that's more of my weak link. I need to work on that. So he's focusing on doing a lot of like sets of 10 on the incline. So I was doing some incline work recently. I cut it back out. A bunch of sets of 10 on the overhead press and then triceps, upper back. Whereas I do floor press, overhead press, triceps, upper back. Wow, that's really similar. When you guys listen to that, it makes sense. It's similar. Same thing. We're both maxing out, doing true maxes with different bench variations, bands, chains. Some use of specialty bars, but I like to do more of the specialty bars right now for my supplemental work. But the whole concept is the same. What is the concept? Max effort benching with lift variations. Okay? Max effort benching with lift variations, followed by high rep supplemental lifts that build the weakest links in your personal bench, which I was doing a lot of weighted dips. Now I've swapped that over for floor press. I've been doing some incline. Now I'm doing the overhead. His case, incline and overhead. Because again, he's addressing his individual weak points. That's the thing that people have to look at with these supplemental lifts. It's not that you're doing the same exercises, as that you're doing the same sort of volume approach with your weak links. Because you have to hypertrophy your weak links. And then we're both doing obviously things like a lot of upper back, a lot of triceps, because those things will increase anybody's bench within reason. So what is his big change? Is that it is maxes and high reps. And that's basically what I do. And people would say, well, why? Why would anyone change to that? Don't you need these intermediate rep ranges? And I think the argument is, no, they're inefficient for the most part. At least if done in the same day. I can understand because I have clients who do max work and then we do 5s and 6s on a separate day. And then they do volume. Or we do max work, then we do speed work. And then extra volume on both days. Right? A lot of my guys, that's how we do stuff with my clients. Once we go over to like conjugate type training. But outside of those sort of things, when we're talking about all your supplemental work, if you've already hit a 1 rep max in the day, there's no benefit to the heavier tension work. It's not like 5s and 6s or even singles at 90% are going to give you the training effect that you already got of grinding against a max. You are not getting a lot of the benefits. A lot of times these intermediate rep ranges are good for people who aren't maxing because it lets us handle heavier loads. And then you get used to and adapt to handling heavier loads, which will make you stronger relative to your amount of hypertrophy you have. But if you're already maxing out, this stuff is an inferior stimulus. The maxing itself handles that. And you use the variations to prevent overuse injuries. And that's a big part of it. Yes, it's to get variation. Yes, it's to make sure that we can handle different grooves, different planes, different angles so that you get all around strong. But if you're maxing all the time, overuse injuries can accumulate. By doing the different variations, going to a floor press or switching the bar or putting bands or putting chains on, by changing the loading, our overuse injury risk goes way down. It goes way down when you're maxing all the time. But if you're maxing out, you don't necessarily need the intermediate rep ranges. What matters? Hypertrophy. Because maxing out maximizes your ability to lift heavy loads with the amount of muscle that you have. Your hypertrophy determines your true strength. The data on that is overwhelming at this point. The scientific literature is overwhelming. Size is strength, okay, period. If you're big and you're not strong, it's because you don't lift heavy. It's because you train like a pussy or you use way too many drugs and don't train enough. You use drugs to build all the muscle. But the guys who max out, who use the drugs, still get really strong too. Brutally strong, more stronger than the natural guys. But the only time you can separate them in that regard is when you refuse to train and lift heavy or you have major weak links. In other words, a bodybuilder who only built 90% of his body up might still be weak because he has major weak links in his musculature that he didn't develop because he used too many machines. But generally speaking, your size equals your strength potential. For people who max out, if you look at the info you have that like Menno Henselman basically said the other day, looking at a big study that was done on strength athletes, he's like, well, basically, since they all practice maxing out, they're all good at lifting heavy. He goes, and when we look at the data that anyone who already maxes out, we could just DEXA scan people at powerlifting meets and have them skip the actual lifts. Because the DEXA scan's actually going to give you the rankings anyways. It's going to tell you, predict ahead of time how they're all going to place. That's what researchers are saying who are looking and studying the lifters. They can pretty well determine from a DEXA scan what your squat, bench, and deadlift are going to be in a competition by scanning your body. So if we come to that point, we need to be getting big as efficiently as we can. If you're already maxing, all we care about is size after that for the most part. I'm not saying speed work and things don't have their places. They do. But realistically, you need to be getting as thick as possible, particularly in the weakest areas on your lifts. This sort of training, it works. It absolutely works. And I've been pushing it for a little while now. A lot of other people out there have pushed the same sort of ideas. Everyone from Jamie Lewis, even Greg Nuckols has talked about this sort of thing. All these people, we all know this. We all know this. I'm one of the guys on YouTube who's now kind of doing it, and it's been working. And that's where I think people are looking at it and saying, okay, this does work. Jason's squat and deadlift are climbing. My bench hasn't caught up yet, but it will. It will. Alex, caring more about the bench, is looking at it saying, this is pretty similar to what I do. I'm going to make it work too. And he will make it work. And here's going to be the proof in the pudding. You guys have watched this work for my squat and my deadlift. That is not up to dispute or debate. It's clearly obvious. I've documented the entire process all year long. It's been documented. I've logged everything. So we have that. And here's what I'm going to say to guys. Watch how this goes. You have two different people who are doing the same training style now for the bench press here on YouTube. I'm doing it. Alex is doing it. Watch and see if our bench presses go up. We're both advanced lifters. We're both advanced lifters. If both of our bench presses increase from doing this same style of training over the next year, we've already watched my squat and deadlift go up from it, I think that that's going to tell everybody everything that they need to know. So that's why I'm going to address this, because this overlaps with what I'm doing. He's doing the same thing for the bench. Let's watch and see. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.